screen. All right, thank you, people. So we're going to start from where we started in our last class. So I'm not going to be explaining all those ones that we did in our last class. I'll just be moving straight to those configuration and bringing out to a router, a switch, and also a computer for the purpose of configuration. Then I'm going to go straight into that computer and do what we did in our last class. So I'm not going to waste time on this. I'm going to just set up the router for the purpose of basic configuration. Basics, part one, let's call it part one. So I can say enable. Don't forget the first thing we did was to give our switch a name. I'll say host name. Let's say CCNA. Then I say line console 0. Password, Cisco. Login. Then I get out of this environment. I'll say enable secrets. Class. Remember I talked about why you don't need to use enable password. You can just go straight to enable secret because it is MD5 encryption we get from them. Which other thing can I do? I can set banner MOTD. I will exclude that one for now. I can set time. I will exclude that one for now. I've passworded my users mode and also my privilege mode. We spend a lot of time in this part in our last class. So what I want to do in today's class, if you are okay, now I can save my work. You can use write command, or you can use copy running config, then startup config. Then you save your job. Don't forget all of those ones. If you take this thing step by step, you'll be very okay. Now, what I want to do in today's class is what if we need to manage this device remotely? What do we do to manage this device remotely? I am not in the server room. I'm in one of the buildings, or I'm even out of town, and I need to enter into that switch. A switch that does not have an IP address cannot be managed remotely. If your switch does not have an IP address, it cannot be managed remotely. Now, if you have not configured your line VTY, you also cannot manage your switch remotely. I think I spoke about line VTY briefly in our last class. That is the virtual terminal line. I'm going to show you now. That is the virtual terminal line. So if I go to show running config to see what I have in my RAM, look at what I'm talking about. All of these things here. I don't need all these lines. One line is okay for me because there are 16 of them. Line VTY, that is the line to log into this device remotely, and it has not been configured. Even though you have login there, by default, there is no password there. Now, you are going to see some devices where you just see login, no password. That means you can log in without any password, but we don't want that way. So we need to configure this particular VT1 line so that we can have a remote access into this switch. That is number one. We also need to give this switch a switch from the network address. So let's say, I can't remember what we used in our last class. So let's just pick one of the, let's say we have 192.168.1.0/24. So out of this, from this network right now, I can give the switch an IP address. I can decide to give the switch .2, .3, .4, .5 of this IP. Any IP address, it makes no difference as long as it's a valid IP address. So I'm going to use .2. I always like to keep .1 for the router because I'm going to bring in a router on Monday into this class. So what will I do? I will go to this switch here. Oh, I'm supposed to use console, guys. I'll go to this switch and configure that line VTY, which is our virtual terminal line, for the purpose of remote access. I'll go to global configuration mode. Now you need to now begin to learn shortcuts now. This is configure terminal. I'll go to global configuration mode and say line VTY 0. if I said line VTY is 0, that means I am configuring only one virtual terminal line, meaning only one person can log in remotely. What if I configure, let's say 0 to 5, or let's say 0 to 4? I am configuring 5 virtual terminal lines. It means 5 different users can log in into this switch simultaneously, doing different things for whatever reason. So we are good with only one. So I will say line VTY is 0. Then you see the prompt has changed to line configuration mode, just like what we had in the last class. I will say password. Let's call this one remote. Then I will say login. That's the first step. You need to configure the line VTY with a password and make sure you put login. Don't forget, this particular line we are configuring is when we are coming in. Let me use that my word again, spiritually. Nobody is seeing us, but we are traveling into the switch. We're not moving into the server room physically. So I can get out of this environment. I have configured line VTY. So now I want to go to the computer. I want to put a new computer on the network and connect it to the switch. Not through the console now, through the network connection. Because meaning it simply means I'm part of the network. It can be anywhere in the organization, any of the buildings, any of the offices. I'm going to do that very soon. But before I go and do that, this switch, I have configured line VTY. Prepare this switch to receive remote access, but it does not have an IP address. So how do I put an IP address on the switch? Another command line, command time. You say interface VLAN 1. Interface VLAN 1. You hit enter. That VLAN 1 is a logical interface on the switch. It's not a physical port. It's a logical port on the switch. That is where we put an IP address. And when you hit enter, you see that your prompt will change to config if, which is called interface configuration mode. So I am right now in that logical interface. So what do I want to do here? I want to put an IP address. What is the command? IP address, take note, 192.168.1.2, spacebar 255, that's subnet mask now, 255.255.0. Don't forget we are at the command line. Everything we are doing here is command. There's no GUI here. So I have given this switch an IP address. And I've also given the subnet mask, this interface an IP address, and also the subnet mask. I will hit enter. And that interface needs to be activated. I will say no shutdown. I will hit enter. You see now, this switch now has an IP address. See all the command I just issued, guys. Do show history. See the command I issued there? I enter line VTY. I put a password. I said login. I exited and I enter interface VLAN 1. I put an IP address and I said no shutdown. If we go and find that right now, you're going to see that this switch now has an IP address. I can say show interface VLAN 1. Show interface VLAN 1. So it's telling me that VLAN 1 is up, line protocol is down. Guys, I'm going to talk more about this. Anytime you are working with any interface, you must have two ups, meaning the interface is up, that's layer 1 issue. The line protocol must also be up, that is layer 2 issue, anytime. And I'm going to tell you much more later why this line protocol is down. We don't have any ports, anything connected to any port on this switch. So all the ports are down. So where is the IP address we put? Look at the IP address here. Show interface VLAN 1. Look at the IP address here. So as it is right now, this switch now has an IP address. I can save my job and get out of this environment. So I have prepared this switch for remote access. So how do we test this? Let me bring in a computer to the network. Bring another computer to connect to the network, guys, not for purpose of configuration now, for just maybe browsing, all of those things. I will connect that computer to the switch using a straight through cable. Don't forget that. Then I'll give that computer an IP address from that network. From that network. So I'll look at how I'll give the computer an IP address. I'll click this computer. I'll go to config. Sorry, I'll go to desktop. I'll go to IP configuration and look at where we are right now. I'm going to give this computer an IP address. I will give this computer 192.168.1.3. I've given my switch .2. I can give my computer .3. Then I'll give a subnet mask. You see that the moment I click that subnet mask, the subnet mask is automatically copied there. Then I need to confirm the IP address that I gave. You configure, you verify. IP configure. How do you configure? How do you confirm that? You go to command prompt on the packet tracer. You now say IP config. When you say IP config, you can see the IP address we give now. Look at the IP address. This is the IP address, and this is the subnet mask. So we're good to go. The next thing now is this. We want to have a remote login into this switch. Don't forget, I don't have console connection. Look at this, my connection here. There's no console. It's a regular network connection. No console. Look at it here. Regular network cable. So I can be anywhere on the network, in anybody's office, anyway. Once I'm on that network and they say there's one issue or the other, I can telnet into that switch, into the command line of that switch. So I'm not trying to browse or just send data. I'm trying to configure that switch. I'm trying to enter into the management interface of that switch, and I'm not in the server room physically. That is what I want to do with this computer. So before I do that, I need to be sure that there is connectivity between this computer and that switch, because ping operates at layer 3, telnet operates at layer 7. If layer 3 is not available, forget about layer 7. Any switch you want to ping or you want to telnet into, rather, you must be able to establish connectivity with it. So because of that, I'm going to say ping 192.168.1.2. That is the IP address of our switch. If the switch can reply, then we can enter into the switch remotely. If it does not reply, we should forget about going into the switch remotely. So you can see now that the switch is replying back. So this computer and the switch can talk to themselves. And this is a layer 3 stuff. So let's move to layer 7. Telnet, that's the command, guys. When we're doing OSI model, you remember I spoke about Telnet, application layer protocol for remote login. Telnet, that IP address we ping, Telnet 192.168.1.2. So whenever you see Telnet, you are trying to establish a remote login to that switch, wherever it is on your network. And guess what? Even if you are not in the organization, let's say you travel out of the country, as long as that IP address is a public IP address and it is reachable to you wherever you are, you can enter into that device remotely. So the moment I hit enter, you are going to see that it's going to ask me for user access verification. So now there are two passwords. One is Cisco. One is, what did you call? Two passwords. One is Cisco. One is remote. One is Cisco. One is remote. Which of the password am I going to give to the switch? Both of these passwords will take us to users mode. If I plug to the switch physically through console, I will give Cisco. If I'm coming spiritually, I will type remote. Since I am coming remotely, I will give the switch remote. Two different passwords to access users mode. So don't mix the two up. So I will give remote. So now you see that this thing has logged us all out because we didn't provide the password on time. So right now, I'll go back, up arrow key, and hit Telnet. So I'll give the switch remote. And guess what? I am in the switch right now, as if I am plugged to that switch physically. Now, I will now go to privilege mode. The same password that I will give privilege is the same password I will give for privilege, which is class. I will hit enter. I'm in privilege mode right now. And yet, I did not plug to the switch physically. It's as simple as that. When you want to have access remotely, you must prepare line V2Y, and you must give that switch an IP address. Establish connectivity with that device. If you can establish connectivity, then you can telnet into that device. I'm going to give room for question, if there is any question. Now we telneted into the router, into the switch rather, and we can do anything on that switch as if we're with the switch physically. So I'm going to get out of this switch. It has logged me out. You can see where I am right now. So now, guys, I taught you how to use Telnet, but don't ever use Telnet for anything. Why? Telnet is not secure. Telnet is not secure. Don't ever use Telnet. Because if somebody should stay in between this traffic and capture all the traffic with Wiresharks, Telnet traffic is not encrypted. That is why you are advised to use SSH. So now we want to learn to prepare the switch for SSH connection. What we just did before is to prepare the switch for Telnet access. So since we were told not to use Telnet, we want to prepare the switch to accept SSH connection. So what is the difference between the two? SSH connection is secure, it's encrypted. If somebody should capture the traffic in between, they cannot make sense of any of the traffic. So let's go ahead and prepare this switch for SSH. So I'll go back to the switch. I want to prepare the switch for SSH. So what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do to prepare the switch for SSH? First and foremost, create a local database, guys. Local database. What do you mean by local database? The way SSH works is a little bit different from the way Telnet works. When you say create a local database, it means you can have multiple users with different username and different password that will be coming in remotely. So you create a local database on your switch. The same thing applies to the router. So I'll go to my switch. I will say username. Let's say OSI. I can say password, but I want to say secret. Let's say CCNA1, or let's just say CCNA. That's class rep now. I can say again username, Pedro. Secret. When I say secret, that means the password is going to be encrypted. Secret, let's say cyber. I can go down again and say username Uche, secret, a different password. So you can have multiple users with different username and different password. That is a local database you are creating on the switch. That is how we configure SSH. We create a local database first. Then when you are done creating your local database, you also create a domain name. Or let's say we generate a crypto key first. You mustn't follow any order anyway. You can generate a crypto key. What is that? It's not the crypto that you people know about. This crypto key is used to generate the security key that will be used between the switch and whoever is coming into the switch. So we say crypto key generate RSA. So we generate a crypto key that is like a secret key between the switch and the computer that will be talking between themselves. And once you do this, you hit enter. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to put a domain name first. You work with a domain name. What's a domain name? Like you say unijust.edu.ng, like cisco.com. It works with that. So I need to define a domain name first. How do I do that? I'll say IP domain, IP domain, IP domain. Then let's say www.cisco.com. What's that command? IP domain name. Okay. IP domain name www.cisco.com. Good. So I define a domain name before I generate my crypto key. If I now generate my crypto key right now, you see what's going to tell me. It will ask me for the key length. Just stay with the default. Just hit enter with the key length and you're good to go. There's a lot to this under cryptography. So we cannot say more than this. There's a lot to this when we talk about cryptography. So you create a local database, you create a domain name, and then you generate your crypto key. And guess what? You now go to the line VTY, where we were before. Line VTY is 0. That where we were before. Now I'm inside line VTY. Now you can see config line here. You go to the line VTY and tell line VTY, get rid of the password we put there before, which is the remote. No password remote, because we don't need it again. Why don't we need it again? We have created a local database on this switch. And anybody coming in remotely now will be making reference or will be using that local database. So get rid of that password and then say login local. What am I saying? Log in the local database. Begin to make use of the local database that I created on this line VTY. Login local. I will hit enter. What next do I need to do? I will now activate SSH by saying transport input SSH and hit enter. And guess what? I am done. What did I do? I created a local database, put domain name, generate my crypto key, went to line VTY, removed the old password that was there, log in the local database, and then activate that interface for SSH. With what I have done right now, I am done. Can save my job. And I've prepared this switch for SSH. You can even see in this place, SSH version 5 is enabled. SSH-5, that is version 1.5 actually. The version 5 is a information system information. So I am done preparing this switch for SSH. How do I test that? Same system we used to Telnet. This time around, we're not going to Telnet because we say Telnet is not safe. We are going to SSH. How do you SSH? How do you SSH? You say SSH dash help, not one, SSH dash help. Let's say there are 2 people there, 3 people actually, OSI, spacebar, 192.168.1.2. What does the meaning of that? This is class rep coming in with her username. She's trying to access this device. If everything is okay, the switch is going to ask for a password. What is the password I gave to class rep? CCNA. I will hit enter. And guess what? She is in the switch. You can see CCNA there. The class rep is in the switch. When Pedro is coming in, he's coming in with his own username and password. When Uchel is coming in, he's coming with a different username and password. So what is the difference between this and what we had before? Every conversation between this and my switch is encrypted. Why the one of Telnet is not encrypted? What if we don't want to do this from command line? We can as well go to our PuTTY. I showed you guys PuTTY when we were learning how to configure this thing. Look at SSH here. SSH is selected. I can just put the IP address of my switch if it's a live switch, and then it will now give me an interface where I can put my username and then password, and then I'm in that switch. So I can use the command line to SSH into the switch, and I can use PuTTY to SSH into the switch. It's as simple as that. Remote login, Telnet, SSH, you need to know how to set them up. I hope I didn't speak Latin. Any question, guys?